The keys felt heavy in Eliza Chen's palm as she stood on the porch of her new home, a smile spreading across her face that she couldn't contain even as she tried. After 5 years of overtime projects, meticulous saving, and countless sacrifices, the 3-bedroom craftsman with honey-coloured wood and a wraparound porch was finally hers. Oakridge Estates, with its tree-lined streets and reputation as one of the most desirable neighbourhoods in town, had always seemed like a distant dream for a woman who had started her career as a junior draftsperson. "You deserve this," her mother had told her when Eliza first showed her the listing. Now, as the early autumn breeze rustled through the Japanese maple in her front yard, Eliza finally believed it. The moving truck arrived precisely at 9, and Eliza directed the movers with the confidence that came from years of managing architectural projects. By late afternoon, her carefully curated furniture, a mix of mid-century modern pieces she'd collected over the years and family heirlooms, filled the once empty rooms with personality. As she unpacked a box of framed photos in the living room, the doorbell rang. "Welcome to Oakridge." A silver-haired man in his 60s stood on her porch, holding a basket filled with local wine, artisanal bread, and a jar of honey. "I'm Frank Delaney from 2 doors down. My wife, and I thought you might need something after a day of moving." The gesture brought unexpected tears to Eliza's eyes. "That's incredibly thoughtful," she said, accepting the basket. "I'm Eliza Chen." "We're glad to have you, Eliza. There's an HOA meeting this Thursday at the community centre if you'd like to meet more neighbours. Nothing formal, just our monthly get-together." The community centre turned out to be a renovated Victorian at the neighbourhood entrance, its interior modernised with subtle elegance. About 30 residents mingled over coffee and pastries when Eliza arrived on Thursday evening. Most welcomed her warmly, retired couples, young families, and fellow professionals who seemed genuinely interested in getting to know their new neighbour. "So you're the one who bought the Mercer place," a voice said from behind her. Eliza turned to find a woman in her late 50s with immaculately styled blonde hair and a string of pearls around her neck. Margot Baumann, Homeowners Association president. Her handshake was firm, her smile not quite reaching her eyes as she assessed Eliza. Quite a purchase for someone so young. "I've been working toward it for some time," Eliza replied evenly, detecting something in Margot's tone that felt vaguely condescending. "Well, we maintain very high standards here in Oakridge. I trust you've reviewed all the bylaws. We're quite strict about exterior modifications, lawn maintenance, holiday decorations." Margot continued listing restrictions while Eliza nodded politely, noting how the woman's voice carried through the room, causing subtle changes in other residents' postures. Later, as Frank walked her home, he chuckled softly. "Don't let Margot intimidate you. She treats that HOA presidency like it's the Supreme Court. Been that way since her husband left and her son started getting into trouble." "Our son?" Eliza asked, curious. "College-aged, comes home during breaks. Bit of a problem child, from what we hear." Frank shrugged. "Margot overcompensates by controlling what she can, and that's the neighbourhood." As they reached her porch, Eliza looked back at her home, warm light glowing from within. Despite Margot's chilly welcome, she felt a deep satisfaction. This was her sanctuary, earned through her own efforts, and no one could diminish that, not even the most intimidating HOA president in town. What Eliza couldn't know, as she bid Frank goodnight and stepped inside, was how quickly that sanctuary would be threatened, or that the keys in her pocket would soon become the centre of a neighbourhood power struggle that would change Oakridge Estates forever. Eliza settled into a comfortable routine over the next 3 months. Weekdays were filled with client meetings and design work at her firm, while weekends meant home improvement projects and exploring her new neighbourhood. She'd repainted the kitchen a warm sage green, installed floating shelves in her home office, and planted tulip bulbs along the front walkway that would bloom in spring. Oakridge felt more like home with each passing day. On a chilly Tuesday morning in November, Eliza was reviewing blueprints at her kitchen island when her phone chimed with an email notification from the HOA. Most HOA communications were mundane announcements about landscaping schedules or reminders about trash collection days. This one, however, made her brow furrow in confusion. From m.bowman@oakridgehoa.org. Subject: Mandatory Security Key Collection. Dear Oakridge Estates residents, in accordance with Section 8 of the HOA Security Protocols, all homeowners are required to provide a duplicate set of keys to their residence for emergency access purposes. This is standard practice in premium communities like ours and ensures prompt response during unforeseen situations. Our security team will be collecting these keys over the next 2 weeks. Additionally, my son Brandon will be assisting with property checks during his winter break from college as part of our enhanced Neighbourhood Watch initiative. Please have your keys ready by Friday. Non-compliance will result in fines as outlined in our bylaws. Regards, Margot Bowman, HOA President, Oakridge Estates. Eliza reread the email twice, her discomfort growing. She had studied the HOA agreement thoroughly before buying the house and recalled no such requirement. Providing keys to her private residence seemed invasive, particularly with the mention of Margot's son performing property checks. After a moment's deliberation, she pulled out the thick HOA manual from her desk drawer and carefully reviewed Section 8. As she suspected, it contained guidelines about exterior security lighting and approved alarm systems, but nothing about mandatory key collection. Eliza composed a polite response. Dear Ms. Bowman, thank you for your email regarding key collection. I've reviewed Section 8 of our HOA agreement and cannot locate any provision requiring homeowners to provide duplicate keys. Could you please direct me to the specific bylaw? While I understand the importance of emergency access, I have concerns about privacy and security. Perhaps we could discuss alternative solutions at the next HOA meeting. Best regards, Eliza Chen. The response came within minutes. Ms. Chen, this policy has been in place for years, though perhaps not explicitly documented in your copy of the bylaws. All residents comply with this security measure. Emergency personnel cannot be expected to break down doors in a crisis, potentially causing thousands in damages. Brandon is fully vetted and will only enter properties in emergencies. He has experience in property management and will be conducting exterior inspections to ensure compliance with landscaping standards during the winter months. I must insist on your cooperation. M. Bowman. The curt response left Eliza feeling uneasy. She decided to call Frank, who had become something of a mentor in navigating neighbourhood politics. Keys? Absolutely not, Frank said firmly after Eliza explained the situation. There's no such policy, and frankly, it's concerning that Margot would make such a claim. Between us, Brandon has had some issues. He was caught trying to enter the Michelsons' garage last summer when they were on vacation. What should I do? Eliza asked, staring out her kitchen window at the HOA president's Tudor-style home across the cul-de-sac. Stand your ground, Frank advised. You won't be the only one refusing. Later that afternoon, Eliza sent a final email declining the request, citing security concerns and the absence of documented policy. The response was a single line that sent a chill down her spine. Asterisk, your non-compliance has been noted. The HOA board will be informed of your unwillingness to prioritize community safety asterisk. That night, as Eliza double-checked her door locks before bed, she noticed a figure standing near her mailbox, illuminated briefly by the motion sensor light before disappearing into the shadows. Sleep came uneasily, with dreams of unknown hands turning keys in her front door. A series of small disturbances began to plague Eliza's otherwise peaceful life at Oak Ridge Estates. On Monday, she found her mailbox slightly ajar, the day's correspondence appearing to have been hastily shuffled back into place. By Wednesday, a gardening catalogue arrived with several pages dog-eared, pages she hadn't marked. When she returned home from work on Thursday, the side gate that led to her backyard stood partially open, despite her distinct memory of latching it that morning. Each incident alone might be dismissed as forgetfulness or paranoia, but together they formed a pattern that left Eliza increasingly unsettled. She found herself checking window locks twice, installing a doorbell camera, and carrying pepper spray on her keychain, precautions that would have seemed excessive just weeks earlier. "You look exhausted," remarked her colleague Jamie during their lunch break. "Everything okay with the new house?" Eliza hesitated, knowing how her concerns might sound to someone outside the situation. "Just some HOA drama," she finally admitted, attempting a casual tone that didn't quite reach her eyes. That evening, while retrieving a package from her porch, Eliza noticed Diane Rivera, a young mother from 2 streets over, walking her golden retriever. On impulse, Eliza waved her over. "I hate to ask something so strange," Eliza began after exchanging pleasantries, "but did you ever receive a request from Margot about providing duplicate keys to your home?" Diane's expression shifted immediately, her friendly smile fading. "About 6 months ago, right after we moved in. She claimed it was for emergencies, but then mentioned her son would be doing property assessments. My husband works in security." He shut that down immediately. "Did anything happen afterward?" Eliza asked quietly. Diane glanced around before responding. "We received 3 citation notices in 2 weeks. Supposedly our trash cans were visible from the street. Our holiday lights too bright." "Petty stuff, but the fines weren't petty." She paused. "Then we installed cameras. The citations mysteriously stopped." Their conversation was interrupted by the appearance of an unfamiliar young man sauntering down the sidewalk, early 20s, with Margot's distinctive nose and chin, but none of her polished demeanour. His eyes lingered too long on Eliza's front door before he nodded curtly at the women and continued past. "That's Brandon," Diane whispered once he was out of earshot. "He's been home more often lately. I've seen him walking through the neighbourhood at odd hours." After Diane left, Eliza called Frank, who invited her over immediately. His living room was filled with neighbourhood memorabilia, framed photos of block parties, community awards, and HOA newsletters dating back 15 years. "It's not just you and Diane," Frank confirmed, spreading several printouts on his coffee table. "I've been collecting accounts from newer homeowners. Sarah Mendez on Willow Lane found her spare key missing from its hiding place after Brandon offered to check her sprinkler system while she was at work. The Patels discovered someone had entered their home during their vacation after refusing to provide keys. Nothing valuable taken, but drawers had been opened, personal items moved." Frank pointed to a timeline he'd created. It started about 2 years ago, around when Brandon was first arrested for shoplifting. Margot began insisting on security measures that coincidentally gave her access to people's homes. The board never approved this. I've been on it for 10 years. Eliza's stomach tightened. Do you think they've tried to enter my house? I think you should check your locks, set up more cameras, and document everything, Frank replied grimly. And maybe talk to Elena Kostova on Birch Street. She's a retired detective who's been suspicious of Margot for months. As Eliza walked home in the gathering dusk, she noticed a faint light moving through her kitchen window, a light she was certain she hadn't left on. Her heart raced as she dialed 911, only to falter when the light disappeared. Would the police believe her? Would they arrive in time? And what if she was wrong? Deciding against the call for now, she instead activated the video recording on her phone and approached her home with caution, determined to gather evidence of whatever, or whoever, awaited inside. Heart pounding in her throat, Eliza approached her house from the side, staying low beneath the windows. The mysterious light inside had vanished, but she wasn't taking chances. Using the back entrance through the sunroom, she silently entered her home and conducted a room-by-room search, phone camera recording everything. Though she found no intruders, subtle signs of disturbance were evident: kitchen drawers slightly ajar, mail rearranged on her desk, a dining chair at a different angle than she'd left it. After triple-checking all locks, Eliza couldn't sleep. Instead, she spent the night researching home security systems and reaching out to Elena Kostova, the retired detective Frank had mentioned. By dawn, she had ordered cameras for every entrance and scheduled a meeting with Elena for that afternoon. Professional curiosity made me start paying attention, Elena explained over coffee in her minimalist living room. In her 60s, with sharp eyes and an even sharper mind, the former detective exuded calm authority. First I noticed Brandon loitering around homes when residents were away. Then I overheard Margot at the gardening club, commenting on interior details of houses she shouldn't have seen. Elena slid a folder across the table. Last summer, I documented 17 instances of Brandon entering properties under dubious pretenses. 3 homes where owners provided keys reported missing items. Nothing substantial enough to risk a police report, mostly cash or small electronics. Why hasn't anyone gone to the police? Eliza asked, scanning the meticulously organized notes. Fear of retaliation. Margot weaponizes the HOA bylaws against those who cross her. The Wilsons faced $8,000 in fines after reporting their concerns. Elena leaned forward. But more importantly, lack of concrete evidence. We need proof of unauthorized entry, proof connecting missing items to Brandon, and proof of Margot's involvement. That evening, Eliza met with 3 other homeowners at Frank's house. Together, they devised a strategy: install hidden cameras, both inside and outside their homes, document every communication with Margot, report any missing items immediately, and back each other up at HOA meetings. Over the next week, Eliza's cameras captured revealing footage. Twice, Brandon walked her entire property line, at one point testing her side gate's latch. More alarmingly, on Thursday afternoon while Eliza was at work, the cameras recorded Margot herself approaching the back door with what appeared to be a key, attempting to turn the lock. She tried twice before giving up and quickly leaving. The evidence mounted with each passing day. Sarah Mendez's interior camera caught Brandon opening her medicine cabinet while supposedly checking for a water leak. The Petals driveway camera recorded Margot using their garage code when they were visiting family. Most damning of all, Elena's sophisticated audio equipment picked up a conversation between mother and son near the community mailboxes. "She's the only one on the street without a key or code," Brandon's voice said. "The Chen woman." "Patience," came Margot's reply. "Everyone complies eventually." The fines start tomorrow, $200 for unapproved window treatments. We'll see how stubborn she remains when it affects her wallet. Armed with this growing evidence, Eliza consulted Logan Meyer, an attorney specializing in property law. His assessment was blunt. This is far beyond HOA overreach. We're looking at attempted breaking and entering, invasion of privacy, possible mail tampering, and abuse of HOA authority. You have enough for law enforcement involvement. Eliza hesitated, pen hovering over the formal complaint form. Taking action meant potential backlash, neighborhood drama, and the end of her peaceful new beginning. Not taking action meant continuing to live in fear in the dream home that was increasingly feeling like a prison. Her decision crystallized when she reviewed the camera footage one final time. The determined look on Margot's face as she tried to enter Eliza's home, the entitlement in her posture, the violation represented in that simple turn of the wrist. This wasn't just about keys anymore. It was about drawing boundaries that should never have been crossed. With steady hands, Eliza completed the complaint form and began preparing for the emergency HOA meeting she had officially requested for the following evening. The Oak Ridge Estates Community Center buzzed with unusual energy. Word of an emergency HOA meeting had spread rapidly, drawing nearly every homeowner in the neighborhood. The standard arrangement of chairs had been supplemented with extras brought from the storage room, and still people stood along the walls, murmuring in small groups. Eliza arrived 15 minutes early, accompanied by Frank, Elena, and her attorney Logan Meyer, who carried a slim leather briefcase. Quite the turnout, Logan observed, scanning the room. Margot's already here, front row center. Classic power position. Eliza nodded, feeling Margot's sharp gaze tracking her as they made their way to their seats. The HOA president sat perfectly poised in a tailored navy suit, expression neutral, but eyes cold and calculating. The 4 remaining board members flanked her, looking uncomfortable and uncertain about the unprecedented meeting. At precisely 7:00 p.m., Board member Jerome Washington called the meeting to order, explaining that this emergency session had been requested by homeowner Eliza Chen to address security concerns. With visible reluctance, he invited Eliza to speak. Taking a deep breath, Eliza walked to the podium, connecting her laptop to the projector. Her hands trembled slightly, but her voice remained steady. Thank you all for coming tonight. I moved to Oak Ridge Estates because it represented everything I wanted in a community: safety, beauty, and respect for privacy. Unfortunately, recent events have undermined those values. She clicked to her first slide, displaying Margot's original email requesting house keys. 3 months ago, I received this communication demanding duplicate keys to my home for so-called emergency purposes. As Eliza methodically presented her evidence, the HOA manual with no such key provision, testimonials from other residents who had received similar demands, and finally, the damning security footage, the room grew increasingly tense. Gasps and whispers erupted when the video clearly showed Margot attempting to use a key in Eliza's back door. This is just one instance of unauthorized attempts to access my property, Eliza continued, playing the audio recording of Margot and Brandon discussing their intentions. Other homeowners have experienced similar violations. Sarah Mendez stood up from her seat. After I gave my spare key for emergencies, I noticed cash missing from my dresser. I thought I was going crazy until I installed hidden cameras. She held up her phone, displaying footage of Brandon rifling through her bedroom drawers. 2 more homeowners came forward with similar accounts before Logan approached the podium with documentation of HOA bylaw violations committed by Margot herself. Throughout the presentation, Margot's demeanor had shifted from confidence to barely contained fury. When finally given a chance to respond, she rose with rigid dignity. "This is nothing but a witch hunt organized by residents unwilling to comply with security protocols," she declared, voice tight with anger. "Brandon has been authorized to conduct property inspections as part of his community management training. Any entry into homes was for legitimate emergency or maintenance concerns. Then why were these inspections not documented in HOA records?" Elena asked from her seat, holding up the official maintenance logs she had obtained. "And why do they only target homes of residents who've challenged your authority?" The room erupted in crosstalk as neighbour after neighbour began sharing stories of intimidation, selective enforcement, and suspicious occurrences following confrontations with Margot. Board member Lydia Fernandez looked stricken. "I had no idea this was happening. The board never approved a key collection policy." Cornered and increasingly defensive, Margot's composed facade cracked. "You've all benefited from my dedication to maintaining property values. I've given everything to this community while you complain about minor inconveniences." "Breaking into people's homes isn't a minor inconvenience. It's a crime," Eliza stated firmly. "You'll regret this," Margot hissed, gathering her belongings. "You have no idea who you're dealing with." With a final glare at Eliza, she stormed out of the community centre, the heavy door slamming behind her. In the stunned silence that followed, Jerome Washington cleared his throat. "I move that we immediately suspend Margot Bowman from her position pending a formal investigation." The motion passed unanimously, with the board scheduling an emergency session to review all evidence and contact authorities if necessary. As the meeting dispersed, residents surrounded Eliza, some offering thanks, others sharing their own stories. The sense of a community reclaiming itself was palpable, but beneath her composed exterior, Eliza couldn't shake a sense of foreboding. Margot's parting threat lingered in her mind as she walked home in the gathering darkness, scanning the shadows with newfound vigilance. The night after the HOA meeting, Eliza slept fitfully, waking at every creak and shadow. Despite the community's support, Margot's threat hung over her like a storm cloud. She'd taken precautions, activating all security cameras, double-checking locks, and accepting Frank's offer to park his car in her driveway overnight, but anxiety still gnawed at her. Dawn brought no relief. Eliza's alarm chimed at 6:30 a.m., and she rose warily, preparing for work. Looking out her bedroom window, she froze. Her car sat in the driveway with all 4 tires slashed, deflated rubber pooling on the concrete. A piece of paper fluttered under the windshield wiper. With shaking hands, she called the police, then Elena. By the time she ventured outside, 3 neighbours had gathered, offering support and outrage. "Don't touch anything," Elena advised as Eliza approached her vandalized vehicle. Using a pen, the retired detective carefully lifted the note from the windshield. "Back off, or worse will come." Last warning. Officer Rivera arrived within minutes, followed by her partner. They documented the damage, collected the note as evidence, and took Eliza's statement. When she mentioned her security cameras, Officer Rivera's expression brightened. "Let's check that footage right away," she suggested. The night vision recording was crystal clear. At 3:17 a.m., Brandon Bowman crept onto her property, knife in hand, methodically puncturing each tire before placing the note. His face was clearly visible when he looked directly into the camera, seemingly unaware or unconcerned about being recorded. "This is textbook criminal mischief and intimidation," Officer Rivera confirmed, copying the footage. "Combined with the attempted unlawful entry you reported and documented yesterday, We have more than enough to proceed with charges." As they spoke, Elena, who had been watching the street through Eliza's front window, suddenly stiffened. "Margot's here," she warned. Through the window, Eliza saw Margot marching up her walkway, face contorted with fury. Before anyone could respond, she began pounding on the front door. "Open up, Chen. I know you called the police on Brandon last night. Your little surveillance obsession has gone too far." Officer Rivera exchanged glances with her partner before moving to the door. "Perfect timing," she murmured, opening it to reveal their presence to a startled Margot. "Ms. Bowman, I'm Officer Rivera. We're investigating criminal vandalism and threats made against Ms. Chen. Your son was recorded slashing her tires and leaving a threatening note early this morning." Margot's face paled momentarily before she rallied. "That's absurd. Brandon was home all night. Whatever footage she has must be fabricated. She's been trying to undermine my authority for months." "The footage is time-stamped and unaltered," Officer Rivera replied calmly. "We've already dispatched officers to your residence with a warrant. Given the evidence and witness statements collected, both you and your son are persons of interest in multiple incidents, including attempted breaking and entering, vandalism, theft, and intimidation." As if on cue, Officer Rivera's radio crackled with news that Brandon had been taken into custody at the Bowman residence, where officers had also discovered a collection of items reported missing from various homes in the neighborhood. The color drained from Margot's face. "This is all a misunderstanding," she stammered. "Brandon sometimes collects things. He doesn't mean harm. And I was only protecting our community standards." "Ma'am, please turn around," Officer Rivera interrupted, removing handcuffs from her belt. "You're under arrest for conspiracy to commit burglary and criminal intimidation." As Margot was led away, neighbors who had gathered outside watched in silence. The community that had lived under her shadow for so long witnessed the fall of someone who had confused control with leadership, authority with power. 6 weeks later, Eliza stood in that same driveway, watching residents arrive for the first neighborhood block party in years. The mood in Oak Ridge Estates had transformed. With Margot and Brandon facing multiple charges and restricted from entering the neighborhood, a weight had lifted from the community. The HOA still functioned, but with new leadership. Eliza had been unanimously elected president after her courage in standing up to Margot. Her first official acts included creating transparent emergency protocols, implementing a community-approved security system for common areas, and establishing an ethics committee to prevent future abuses of power. As twilight settled over the gathering, Frank raised a toast. To neighbors who become guardians, houses that become homes, and a community that finally remembers what it means to trust one another. Looking around at the faces of people who had moved from strangers to allies to friends, Eliza felt the last of her anxiety melt away. Her dream home had been tested, but not diminished. If anything, it had become more precious. A sanctuary hard-won and fiercely protected, in a community that had rediscovered its heart.